Midnight on Earth podcast with your host, Jake Weaver. Engineered by Cedric Swan. Hey everybody, we are back with another episode of Midnight on Earth. I'm your host, Jake Weaver, and we are here to bring you more knowledge, more light, and more love. And as usual, more incredible guests like Jill M. Jackson, who is here today to talk about a lot of things, but her new book, Manifesting Your Magic in the 5D, Going Beyond the Laws of Attraction. She wrote this incredible book, and we're going to talk to her, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. But first, I need you to do something for me. Follow me on Instagram at midnight_on_earth. That is the address. You can follow me there. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you go to get your podcast, click that button that connects us so you know exactly what is going on when people come on to talk about these incredible topics. You get that notification instantly. And word of mouth, of course. Tell a friend. Tell someone that you know that needs this information or resonates with it. It's just so good. Bring them here. midnightsonearth.com. Okay, so we are going to talk to Jill in just a second, but first I need to read her bio. So here we go. Jill M. Jackson is an internationally celebrated psychic, medium, spiritual teacher, and published author. She is the recipient of the Psychic of the Year Award 2 years in a row from Best American Psychics, as well as its 2014 Social Activism Award for her volunteer work with animals. As a spiritual teacher and spiritual mentor, Jill works with students and clients to ignite their innate sacred gifts. Seeing her students undergo this magical transformation is a joy to Jill's soul, and their testimony speaks to her passion and brilliance as a mentor. Her authorial debut was Mississippi Medium, My Journey from Southern Baptist to Talking to the Dead, a must-read for anyone on the path of awakening, and has many 5-star reviews. Jill cultivated her connection to spirit through extensive study. She attended the Arthur Findlay College in England, the world's foremost college for the advancement of spiritualism and psychic sciences. Her list of mediumship teachers is also extensive. She has been featured on Lifetime television as well as Next Level Soul with her work as a medium. And by the grace of all things wonderful, she is here with us today. Hello, Jill.
Hello, Jake. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're manifesting in the 5D and we attracted each other, right? The law of attraction. We are on the same frequency enough to be in this moment together.
I love that. Absolutely.
So tell me about how you discovered your gifts early on. Now, you talk about in your book how you were born with gifts of intuition, prophecy, and mediumship. How did you tap into all of this and then discern all of that?
Well, I was able to see the spirit world since I was a toddler. I mean, from as far back as I can remember, I would see these random people walking around my house all the time, and I didn't know what they were doing there. At the time, I could not hear them. The first spirit that I actually heard was my grandmother, and I was 12 years old, and she passed away, and she woke me up floating above my bed in full form like I'm seeing you right now, and she telepathically said, I'm not sick anymore. I just wanted to let you know I'm in a beautiful place. I'm good. Don't worry about me anymore.
Wow. So what did that do for you spiritually at such a young age? Did that give you hope and kind of this understanding that there's this other world and a sense of peace? Or was it kind of like, whoa, overwhelming?
Both, Jake, because On one level, I wasn't afraid any longer because it was my grandmother and she was telling me it was all great. But on the other hand, I was 12 years old and I was trying to fit in. And at the time, I thought everybody could see the spirit world. My mother was also a medium. So when I would run to her room and tell her about my grandmother, she said, yeah, she's been in here visiting me as well. So at home, it was kind of the norm, but I didn't go around talking about it. And even through high school, there was only one friend that I actually told that I had these gifts. I kind of kept it silent, which many people do.
Right, because it just doesn't fit in with the conventional paradigm. Though, as we're moving into 5D or just integrating that energy, people are starting to open up more than ever before. They're really exploring. They're saying, well, what if it's possible? They're kind of taking that step. They're saying, well, what if it's possible? What does that look like? Let me look at some of that information, which is huge overall for humanity.
Absolutely. And, my guides have been saying for several years now that the paranormal is actually the new normal. I mean, that is our reality. And especially, like you said, those of us who have already integrated the fifth dimension into our awareness, that is the reality.
Exactly. And of course, in human history, people used to culturally integrate that information more. Perhaps we lost touch with it. We did kind of lose touch with it in certain cultures, but we're bringing it back collectively. And this is something that is one of the foundational concepts of this new earth that we're moving into, is that we're doing it all together. It's not just one region of the world that's getting downloads and flourishing culturally. It's now all of us coming together, realizing our oneness, and then flourishing as this beautiful species that we are.
Absolutely. And the energy of the collective. And, whenever we raise our own personal vibration, I teach my students this, it does ripple out into the collective as well. And it just kind of proves the spiritual law of oneness or unity. And it's beautiful.
Yes, and there is that layer as well that shows us that everything is kind of this illusion, and there's just this rapport between you and source. Now, that's not the complete picture, but on one layer, it is that way. So when you change and you integrate love and you integrate all of these great concepts, you're literally changing the entire hologram.
Absolutely. And when we can recognize that much of it is an illusion, then our reality changes drastically. But I mean, there's a process, wouldn't you agree, Jay, where it takes people a while to kind of integrate to that new reality?
Oh, it's a step by step process. And for a lot of people, it's a lot of big downloads and a big epiphanies and big kind of energetic shifts. And then you start stacking those over time, and then you're able to access some of this information that we're talking about. Yes, it takes time, but all of us and any of us can get there.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing I say as well is we can open that door before our awakening. When we step through that door, there's really no going back, right? Because everything changes in our awareness.
There's no going back, because I believe on a core level, there's a frequency shift. So you get behind the matter and you're just this light being vibrating in a certain way. And then that changes permanently because you integrated information, and the information, you became that. So like you said, there's no going back, but that's also evolution. That's growth that we're talking about.
Absolutely. And that's the purpose for incarnating in each lifetime is, my guides prefer that I call it, instead of lessons, soul growth opportunities, because that is the purpose of incarnation, is evolution of the soul.
Yes. And then do you feel like we all ascend when we all evolve as souls? What happens when we all get there? Because time, even though it's linear, something about it suggests that there's a chance that all beings could reach the point of ascension somewhere in the time stream. What does that look like, and what happens afterwards?
That's a great question. It feels like that there are two different timelines occurring right now to give other people time for that same awakening, because some people, we have spiritual law of free will. We have free will. We can choose not to open that door, not to walk through that door. So many people are experiencing two different realities right now, and they're becoming more and more apparent of how different they are. And so, in my belief, the free will is we experience what's going on through whatever lens we choose to vibrate from. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And it's almost like an individuated reality. Like we have, each person has their own reality because it's all based on their perceptions. They create it, but it's individualized in a way, strangely.
Yes, it is. And, that is one concept that sometimes people have a little bit of a challenge with, because on one spectrum, we are individuals. We're living, we're souls living a human experience, but at the same time, we're telling everybody that we're connected. So there's a paradigm here and a paradox, actually, but it's beautiful. It's, what my guides have said too is there's a resonance. And you mentioned that at the beginning of the show, that we manifested each other because we are resonating in the same vibrational frequency. And that's what happens when people have awakened to the truth and removed the dogma of the old paradigm and let it go.
Yeah. It's part of our evolutionary process, but we also, I believe, have to see the value in those experiences and look at that collectively and say, why was that a part of our story? And what value, we've passed it now, we've now ascended, but what can we transmute from that growth period to look at the atrocities, to look at the things that a higher frequency, higher vibrational being would kind of be like, whoa, like looking at those and saying, okay, how can we transmute that? I think that's part of it as well.
I agree 100%, Jake. It's a balance. And with everything that's going on right now, because I teach about spiritual bypassing, which, says to us, don't use the love and light to ignore what is truly going on in the world. And some of us have the sole purpose to be activists. Some of us have the sole purpose to speak up and use our voices and speak our authentic truth to help with that evolutionary process of growth. But at the same time, it's such a sacred dance and a balance to not go down that rabbit hole and stay there, to look into each one of our souls, to know what our individual purpose is, to help the collective ascension process along with the process of Mother Earth as well, and then keep that balanced.
Yes, and why these things are happening, the things that are on the lower spectrum of human behavior, you're right. You can't just ignore those things. We have to understand them, but we have to work to raise our collective vibration so those behaviors where they vibrate, they can't even connect with us. They can't even match with us. And it takes each person really building themselves in their own way, utilizing their talents, like you said, discovering their talents for service or whatever they would like to do that they feel is contributing to the whole thing moving forward. And it could be something very localized or very huge. Each one of those things, I believe, is equally important.
100%. They're all important. And, part of our individual expansion is peeling those onion layers back, so to speak, to get to the core of what and who we are. Because until we know who we are, we really don't know what our part in the process is.
Absolutely. It is really personal discovery, personal development, personal growth. It's all an inward experience. And like you said, and you talk about in your book, it reflects outward. You got into this information and really took the deep dive because of Rhonda Byrne's book, The Secret, right? That was like a catalyst for you. Is that correct?
Well, even a little bit before that, just studying the law of attraction, I've been able to manifest my entire life. So, yes and no. I loved the book. I felt like at the time that it was a wonderful book teaching us about the law of attraction. But then I discovered that sometimes it doesn't work, depending on whether we're following our soul's blueprint. And there's many other factors as well.
Yes, your soul's blueprint. That's a huge part of it because the law of attraction did get out there in a very big way because of The Secret. And that gave people a glimpse. We're talking about other situations where people have to take things in steps, right? So that was like the first step for some people. They ran The Secret or they saw the DVD at the time, like I did. And it was eye-opening, but a lot of people got fixated on the fact that was it. Like if they just did a certain amount of things, if they did things in a certain way, the law of attraction would work on its own, not understanding the various other laws. Now, this was exciting for you as you talked about in your book when you realized there was far more than just the law of attraction.
Yes, absolutely. And I have so much admiration and respect for not only Rhonda, but all the contributors of The Secret, because, like you said, that was a huge pivotal moment in the foundation of our collective ascension process. But yes, I recognized when I wasn't able to manifest something that I wanted more than anything, I started going on a quest to find out why, because on top of grieving the very thing I wasn't able to manifest, I also had what I call perceived manifestation failure, where I was feeling bad about myself, that how had I failed in manifesting when I followed all the steps of The Secret and the law of attraction. And that's what led me on basically about a 3-year journey to discover all the pieces of it.
Wow. Yes, I've personally, as you can tell, we're similar frequency people. I personally had a similar journey where I discovered it in the same way and then reverse engineered the other laws as well, and then discovered authors and all of these great teachers for decades, especially in the early 20th century and mid 20th century. So what did you start to notice as you learned about these other laws? And then how did you apply them?
So the two laws that are actually the pillars to the law of attraction are the spiritual law of action and the spiritual law of vibration. And, I even tell my clients, that's great that we speak what we want to the universe. But if we just sit in our houses in a lotus position, waiting for it to come to us, more than likely it's not going to. And so the spiritual law of action means just that. We take action steps and we tell the universe by our actions that we are serious about wanting the very thing that we are attempting to manifest. And by taking those action steps, that creates the vibration, the spiritual law of vibration that supports the other pillar of the law of attraction. So those three kind of work in conjunction together.
Right. You make the choice, you come to the firm conclusion, you want to do something, and then you actually do it, because that in itself, like you said, sets up a specific vibration that attracts things and attracts people that are somehow aligned with your goals, and then materials there or money that might be aligned with your goals. And then there's your goal. And it's interesting that that happens because it shows that there are other functions of the universe that have yet to really be uncovered. We see these certain aspects, we see these laws in action, but there are other laws and perhaps more to be discovered.
Absolutely. And one thing that I discovered as well, Jake, is the spiritual law of trust and surrender. We can create our vision boards, but if we obsess over them and what I like to call claw and scratch at trying to control the outcome of them, that is not having trust in the universe. And so it's one of the most challenging ones, especially for people like myself. I call myself a recovering control freak because I like to control things, and many of us do. We feel, that ego comes in and it's like, oh, I can do this so much better than our higher self in the universe. But no, when we just trust and surrender and allow it to to flow, because sometimes the manifestation looks different than what we thought it was going to look like in the first place, right?
Exactly, because I believe in situations like that, when you create that vacuum with intention and action, if you're not matching the need of the vacuum, then perhaps you'll attract all the things to grow over time, and then the vacuum will be filled. So sometimes people set their intentions, they actually create action, they're visualizing, they're doing all the steps, and yet the thing isn't happening, right? But then somehow during that time, they learn something, they grow, they take a deeper dive. 6 months later, a year and a half later, they're way more knowledgeable than they were then. And then the vacuum fills itself. That's what I've noticed.
That's beautiful. I love how you describe that, Jake, because like you said, all along the way, there's so many soul growth opportunities for us to continue our own expansion. Somebody asked me recently, when we're not able to manifest, why do we deserve that prison sentence? And my response was, I don't view it as a prison sentence. I view it as an opportunity for further expansion. And like you said, for the frequency to catch up and to integrate with what it is for our highest potential at the right divine timing as well.
It's really interesting because all of the things that you talk about in your book have been taught in ancient times through these mystery schools. It was almost considered magical information. And in a way, if you think about those ancient times before radio waves and technology, perhaps manifestation worked a little more intensely. Perhaps things were a little more fluid or dreamlike. But even now, it's still considered magical teachings, but yet here we are utilizing these and showing people that these are just natural functions of the human experience.
Yes, I mean, this goes back to Blavatsky, and I mean, like you said, hundreds and hundreds of years and thousands of years. And a lot of times they did keep them as mystery teachings, and for various reasons. But yes, the information has been there. But it's also really astonishing how many people are not aware yet that we have these spiritual laws at our disposal, and we also have our soul's blueprint as well. And many people just have not come to that awareness quite yet. And it's exciting to see more and more people opening up to this reality.
It just shows humanity's ascending. It's indicators of ascension. But can you help our listeners understand the concept of the soul blueprints?
Absolutely. Before we incarnate, we meet with our main spirit guide. I call them my spirit team, and they look at our past lives and they help us determine what would best serve us individually and collectively for the lifetime coming up. We choose our gender, we choose our race, ethnicity, where we're going to, the nationality, on and on and on. And then we also choose the people that we are going to meet that are going to play certain roles in our lifetime. And we draw it up in what I like to refer to as the soul's blueprint. And it's kind of a guideline for us along our path. And what my guides have said to me is they will not interfere unless we ask them for assistance. And so they do have our blueprint at their disposal, and they kind of will help guide us, and especially when we ask them to. But when we receive roadblock after roadblock in something that we're trying to manifest, many times the roadblock is there because it does not align appropriately with our original soul's blueprint.
Wow. And if you don't understand that, if you haven't been taught these things, you're just frustrated and you kind of turn the disappointment inward. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I'm not intelligent enough. Maybe I did this wrong. But really, it's about your blueprint and you try to find the good in it. Maybe just course correct.
Yes, it's a course correction. I mean, just like for me individually, I wanted a biological child, and I tried and tried and tried. And after 5 miscarriages, I had to come to the realization it just was not meant to be in this lifetime. But and that was part of that deep dive of going in to determine my own soul's blueprint. And I made that choice. I had just forgotten, my ego self had forgotten that I chose this lifetime not to be a biological mother. I chose to be a stepmother. I chose to be a mother to furry animals and a spiritual mother to many.
Yes, and you've done a lot of great work, but you said in your book that there are factors that influence the soul's blueprint, things like destiny, free will, fate. The soul's blueprint exists, but then there are those factors. So when those factors come into play, are you saying the spirit guides then amplify to get us back on track?
If we ask for their help, they will not interfere with us because of the spiritual law of free will. And it's interesting because it can be this hamster wheel, Jake, where, like you said, people get frustrated, and a lot of times that frustration turns to anger, and those are lower vibrational energies. And so then we're not able to manifest or co-create when we're vibrating at a lower frequency. So we stay on that hamster wheel sometimes. Our spirit guides are there. If we ask them to help us, they absolutely will.
It's very interesting because in mainstream culture, we're taught, at least in the West, that those types of situations, talking with spirit guides, interfacing and asking questions into that realm is almost paranormal. It's weird. It's science fiction. It's woo-woo, which is like a word that's like nails on the chalkboard for me. But it's those things. Do you think that's intentional? Is that evolved from oppressive religions and humanity over time? Like, why was that part of us, this vital, integral part of us, so suppressed?
I believe it's multiple reasons. And, in my book, Mississippi Medium, I wrote about the control of the organized religion of church. And if you look back to the original teachings of Yeshua, Jesus, Sananda, many names, if you look back at those original teachings, he actually said, he didn't need a physical church. And I feel like that organized religion has created a lot of false dogma in order to control people. And the way you control people is by creating fear. And
and disconnecting us from that realm. Religions in general, the oppressive ones will say, have always taught their people to focus their spiritual energy on one point, and any other spiritual information could potentially be demonic. So, don't listen to it.
Right. And actually the answers lie within, and that's what Jesus's teachings were trying to tell people, is that we are all aspects of God, of Creator. We're sparks of the divine.
Yes, and what a powerful being. What an incredible being that left such a huge mark on humanity. Yeshua, the Christ consciousness, I believe, and perhaps you can agree, raised our vibration during that time, as others have, but during that time, during humanity's evolution. And now we're kind of reintegrating that. And would you say the Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, Krishna consciousness, that energy is part of 5D consciousness? Is it 5D? What's the connection there?
Oh, 100%. I do feel that the Christ consciousness is the aspect of the 5D, of the fifth dimension. Yes. And so that's what I talk about in my book, as well as creating in the higher dimension. We want to raise our vibrational frequency. And whenever we integrate the fifth dimension into our reality, you hear about the veils thinning. Actually, the veils are pretty much non-existent once we do integrate into the energy of the fifth dimension, because we are in that reality, and that becomes our new normal, right?
Right. And that's the collective frequency shift. And do you believe that part of that frequency shift collectively is really understanding that we're light beings, that we're living light. And no matter how our vehicle shows up and the history of the vehicle around the world, we're still one within that light being perspective. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. You know, the third dimension is a very dense dimension, but we chose that. We chose to experience it as humans this time around. And part of the soul growth opportunity is recognizing the density of the third dimension and raising our vibration to integrate fifth dimension and higher into our awareness and our being.
Wow. And some people believe that going from 3D to 5D is the plan. Like that was always part of our purpose. And in a way, reality was kind of this blank canvas for us to learn in this density. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's part of the expansion, and also it's my belief that Mother Earth is raising in her vibration as well, and going through the ascension process at the same time.
Exactly. Yes, we've talked about that on our show, where the Earth itself is evolving, and we're connected to the Earth. So in a way, we're kind of along for the ride, but then there's this aspect that compels us to take action, which is a huge component to this experience. Like we said earlier, taking action, and the action that we take is still part of the Earth's natural growth process. Though it seems like free will is at play, and it is on one layer, but still that action was destined to be about part of the Earth's ascension process.
Absolutely. And, you know, the more that we can remember our connection to Mother Gaia and connect with nature, you know, you hear about the tree huggers, but I like to take it even further, Jake. I love to talk to the trees and talk to the animals and to the plants, and really take time to watch them respond back, because I promise you they will.
Yes, they're plant spirits, they're living beings, they have consciousness, they respond to external stimuli, and they're a natural being. So how could it not have consciousness? Humans are very strange. During our development process, we kind of created this false reality, and we put it on top of something that was already there. The natural world, the universal divine paradigm. And in that kind of matrix reality that we created and that we put on top of something that was already there, the beautiful Earth, like you said, Mother Gaia, we kind of forgot that we did that. So many of us remembered, so many people tried to sound the alarm throughout human history. But overall, in a general sense, we kind of forgot that we did that. And then we see our world as the only world that matters. And the Earth is just a bunch of resources and everything's about us. It's really interesting.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. Yeah, humans, humanity.
But we're coming out of that matrix. Okay, so that matrix is in a sense 3D, though 3D is like just the density of being in this dimension. The human created matrix within 3D is dissolving as 5D is coming in. When do you feel like, as you've been in this world for a while now, you've been teaching people for a long time, when did you feel like this really started to take a big uptick in the general consciousness? When did you start to really notice ascension was like picking up steam?
Well, there's different layers, like you mentioned before. You know, of course, the year 2000 was pivotal. The year 2012 was pivotal. And, you know, so many people were talking about the end of the Earth. And in many ways, it was just a shift. It was part of a further shift in the ending of the old paradigm and propelling us further towards the creation of the new Earth. I feel like 2020 was a huge pivotal moment, you know, when the world shut down, and
Right.
It gave many people time to go within and really start searching for what was important to them.
People are programmed throughout their lives that the system, the way the world is, it's just the only thing that's going on. So like you said, when COVID happened, it made people reflect and say, hey, wait a second, what happens if this thing goes away? Now, there's people like yourself that were naturally tuned in, and you kind of already knew that, probably because of past lives and other situations and just your lineage and all of that. But also, it's just now that people are kind of like realizing, and then during that COVID time, that, wow, this could dissolve. Like, what happens if this goes away? Oh, and then, like you said, they were looking inward.
Yeah, absolutely. As I'm also a prophetic psychic, and I do see, the future, and it's been a really interesting dance for myself personally to kind of see the choices that humanity has made along the way, and at the same time, not, trying to educate people, but also reminding people that we are co-creators and we can shift this reality each and every day. We can continue putting our energy to the creation of the earth that we are wanting to reside in.
Absolutely. That's probably one of the most foundational principles of all of this, of all the things that I think we're all trying to teach people, is that as this powerful divine spark, this light being, you're in this holographic matrix that's responding to you. So if you write the code, if you put your energy out, if you get a hold of that power, you're creating that reality. And then enough of us together are then co-creating the reality, any reality that we really choose. We can create any reality. We were born into someone else's reality. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, that is fascinating.
But that's a foundational principle, and that's so huge, because when humanity, the love-based humans get a hold of that power, we're all love-based humans, but as we all tune into that and get a hold of that power, we're going to create the new earth. That's the thing. You said you're a prophetic psychic as well. You see the new earth. You can feel it. So many sensitive people can feel the emanations through the time stream, because that's how beautiful and how powerful those frequencies are. You can feel it coming. You already know, but it's there. So that's pretty amazing in itself.
Absolutely. And one thing that I love to tell people to pay attention to is, have you ever been in one of these deep meditations or out in nature, and when you look around you, the colors are deeper than you've ever experienced before? Or perhaps you've been in nature and you've had an encounter with a wild animal, or an animal that is just outside of the norm of that animal's, normal behavior. That is the new earth. That is the fifth dimension, and that's us being able to integrate that into our reality.
Yes. And then I always love to talk about this with people like yourself, and especially since we were just talking about our wonderful future. What happens after we all integrate this? Just the earthlings. Like, what happens when all of us get there? Like, what's next for humanity after the new earth is fully established?
What I've been shown, Jake, is that, the term heaven on earth, is that the beauty of it is we still are able to experience life through the vessels, through the human vessels that we've chosen for this incarnation. However, we experience truly heaven on earth in these realities. That's one thing I love about mediumship, is the loved ones are able to let us know what the other side looks like. And in my experience, the other side is truly fifth, sixth, seventh dimension. Our loved ones are residing in that dimension. It's why more and more people are having experiences with seeing, their loved ones, or seeing what, people refer to as ghosts, but they're not ghosts. They're truly our loved ones coming into our realm more often.
And as we're ascending, as the veil is thinning, as the frequencies are changing, people are having more of these experiences just naturally. Yes. Because of the changing.
Yes. And also what I've been shown is more of a respect for the plant and animal kingdom as well, because, in the new earth, everybody, nature, we all just integrate beautifully together. And there's just a respect there. There's a reverence, is what I've been shown.
I totally resonate with that statement. And I think it's because we will have the understanding and the ability to turn energy into matter. And the scarcity, which is such a huge part of all the fear and all of the stifling aspects of human development, there'll be no scarcity when you can literally make a material object out of essentially thin air. That technology is coming. So when we have that, that will somehow do something to the core spirit of humanity, that survival instinct, that primal instinct. It'll somehow satiate, that'll somehow satisfy that fire, I believe. And that will be a part of it. And then as we're out there, do you think that we'll interface with the galactic family more now that we'll have this raised vibration? No more scarcity. We're in love with each other again. Are we now attracting these other entities in a physical sense?
100%. And, more and more people are having experiences with the galactics, our star families, and, the orbs that have been seen around the world. When I channeled about that, they received, I guess, permission or agreement from the councils, the world councils, galactic federations, and coming into our atmosphere. And they told me that it's twofold. One is they're helping those of us who have awoken and understand frequency and energy. They're helping us integrate our energy into the new earth frequency. And they're also here to kind of protect our planet as well. So yes, 100%, that's part of it.
Wow. Because like I said, you channeled before. You channeled Ashtar of the Ashtar Command. What was that like? Tell me about that experience.
That was kind of interesting. That I was not even familiar with who Ashtar was, and I was woken up in the middle of the night with his voice talking to me and asking if he could work with me. And then I had to, come out of my sleep and wake all the way up and kind of Google and see who is this person of Ashtar Command. And then I saw that other people were connecting with him as well. I've channeled a group of beings called the Emerald Group. I've channeled the main one that I'm channeling now goes by the name of Solomon. It's a group consciousness, ninth dimensional Palladian being. And, I've had UFO experiences since I was about 9 years old, as far as back as I can remember. But I love our galactic families.
Well, they're really beautiful. There's so much beauty there. And you're right. As again, things are shifting, there's more interface points, there's more interactions with our galactic family. And people like to look at things, humans like to look at things from a linear kind of material sense. So the way I explain it to people is what happens when a certain species gets there. They all evolve, they get to the Christ consciousness point and everything's beautiful, like we were just talking about. But then 50 million years pass. 100 million years. And it turns into a whole, not just galaxy, but a galactic cluster. I mean, there's so much going on over there. Like the level of energy, the level of evolution development is so powerful in those places. And that's what it looks like when evolution really goes to not its farthest step, but as far as we can perceive. And then those love-based beings, of course, they're love. So they want to go out there and help in some way, right? You're a love-based being.
Yes.
Your whole being is radiating love, resonant with love, radiating love. You want to go out and find these lower frequency areas in the universe, in the material universe, and just raise them up. It's part of their mission in a way, but it's also just like their natural inclination.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, Jake, because you're right. It's their natural energy to want to help raise the vibration. What they've shared with me is that when Mother Earth's vibration raises up, and each human, as individually and collectively, raises up, that it also helps them in their evolution as well, that it helps their vibrational frequency.
Wow. Yes, because we're all so interconnected. Literally, you talk about that in your book, Quantum Entanglement. We're all so connected that our evolution is connected to everything's evolution. It's all evolving, even in dimensions that we would consider almost like astral or fixed. There's evolution happening there as well.
Yes, there is. And one thing, if I could, I
Yes.
feel the need to share this. So many people that have come to me over the years for mediumship sessions, and somebody in their family that's on the other side has stepped forward and maybe asked for their forgiveness for something, and the person here in the physical is still adamant that they're not willing or ready to forgive. And what I would like to say to the listeners is, yes, there's free will to choose not to do that, but it really, really helps not only your loved one on the other side, because when there's that energy there, it's interesting because it holds them back a little bit as well. It's so freeing. I've watched it where the person here says, I am willing to offer forgiveness to you. And by doing that, it helps our loved ones, but then it helps the person that releases that energy, and their lives start changing drastically as well. It's such a beautiful thing to witness.
Yes, because like you're saying, it's like a negative magnet. If you're thinking of the quantum field, there's like this coalescing of negative energy, and perhaps it's pulling on your life force, and then you release that, and then your life force is freer to express itself, and then you're out there manifesting more. And time is so brief. We're here on this planet for 5 minutes, holding on to things. Yes, of course, terrible things happen. You don't necessarily have to associate with people that perhaps have done something devastating, but the letting go of that energy corrects your specific energy field.
Absolutely. And it helps raise our vibrational frequency. Like you said, it doesn't mean that we have to condone bad behavior by any means. And it's okay to disconnect from people that are not vibrating at, they've chosen not to vibrate at a certain frequency. That's okay. And what my guides have shared with me is it's all resonance anyway. So wherever we're vibrating, that's the people that we're going to attract into our energy fields anyway.
Right. And that, again, is why it's so important to really maintain a positive attitude about life. And you talk about this in your book, The Power of Positive Thinking. That's just a huge aspect of it, because when you hold that, you're then creating that. Now, so many people talk about that. You create what you think about. Thoughts are things, whatever you are like, that's the law of vibration, actually. Whatever your kind of personal vibration is, that's what you're attracting into your life. So many people talk about that, but when you change that polarity, when you hold that higher frequency, then you're creating, again, the best things from that place of total faith and love.
Yes, and it sounds so easy, doesn't it, when we talk about positive thinking? It's like, oh, well, who couldn't do that? But, it takes 21 to 30 days to rewire our brains. And especially those people who have chosen to still stay plugged into the mainstream media, where it's just nonstop negative all day long that they're being fed, we can choose to start our days and offer gratitude and speak it out loud and really thank the universe for everything that we have to be joyful for. I was recently in Mexico, and the place we were staying had a beautiful Mexican woman who was the caretaker and the chef and everything, and her energy was so pure. And every morning when I would, say hello to her, how are you doing? Her response was, today is the best day of my life and the best day I've ever lived. And it's like, if we could all just remind ourselves to start our days in that energy, can you imagine where the evolution would be?
We'd be moving quick, because there is that acceleration that happens when people tune into this. And like you're saying in your book, as we develop ourselves, the more people that tune into this, then the faster we get to that new earth.
Yes, absolutely. And again, just create mantras there every day, and do gratitude journals. And if you find yourself a spiritual buddy who is noticing that, you're using a lot of the, what was called previously stinking thinking and speaking negatively, lovingly remind each other, we have an option to shift that energy. And again, it doesn't mean that we don't have a right to grieve when we lose someone that we love, or to get frustrated at some of the injustices, but it's important that we find that balance, and then that we go back to remembering that in every moment we are co-creating our reality.
Right. Whew. It's difficult. And like you said, it takes a lot of training. It's very easy for us to say these things. I feel like we're so resonant, myself and you, that it's like two guitar players jamming together, and people are watching us and they're like, how are those guys? And we're just like, oh, you can get there, but it does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of learning, but most importantly, it just takes the intention and the action. Right? You have to want to do it. You have to pursue it. And you have to have faith that as you create that intention and then you hold that frequency, that you're going to attract those things into your life. You have to have that faith. Faith is such a big part of it.
Yes, it is. But, another huge part is doing our shadow work. And,
Ooh, right.
I've been a spiritual teacher for many, many years. And in the beginning, I was teaching people about intuition without teaching about the shadow. I was teaching them the fun things, to use the tarot cards and the scrying mirror and the pendulum and on and on and on. And the clairs, and all of those are really important. And our intuition is so important. But what I noticed was, when we have not done our own individual shadow work, it's actually impossible to fine tune that intuitive compass, so to speak.
Wow. So for people that don't understand the concept, just very briefly, what is shadow work? And then what are some of the things we could do to start doing that work?
Yeah, we all have a light aspect and a dark aspect to ourselves. The easiest way to think about the shadow is, it's the parts of ourselves that maybe you're not going to share with someone on a first date over coffee. So let's say that you have a jealous streak, and in the past you've scared other potential partners away from jealousy. So that could be considered a shadow aspect of the personality. Can it be worked with? Absolutely. Can we get to a place where we let go of that jealousy or that need to control another? But that's something you might not share with someone right over the first cup of coffee on a first date. Hey, by the way, I've been known to be a little psycho in the past. These types of things. And so there are also traumas that have been stored in the subconscious mind. And doing the shadow work helps us peel those layers back to get to the core truth of who we are, and to learn to love all aspects of ourselves. But we can always evolve and grow into better humans, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's the thing. Forgiveness applies to others. You want to forgive others, but you also, most importantly, maybe have to forgive yourself, which is doing the shadow work and just realizing that that part of the person's personality may exist. But if you can look at it through the right lens, if you can get to your higher self, put your consciousness in there and look at it, you can transmute it, you can release it. You don't have to suppress it, because so many people suppress their shadow side, which then leads to more shadowy behavior. You could say.
Exactly. And then they're triggered by things, and, they don't understand why they had a certain reaction. So like you said, it's months and years of personal development. And actually it's in our best interest to never stop evolving and learning. Somebody asked me recently if I considered myself still a student, even though I was a teacher. And I said, if you ever come across a spiritual teacher that doesn't feel that they are still learning, run the other way, because that is ego. I mean, I learn from my students all the time. I learn from other colleagues. We learn from each other.
Yes, we're all learning from each other. There's an incredible teacher. Her name's Mary Morrissey. And I learned from her that you only have to be 2 steps ahead of someone to teach them. So some people can be learned in all these different fields, and we can all teach each other. And that's kind of how we get there, really. That's sharing that love, that information. Before we move on from the shadow work stuff, I do want to ask you, do you feel like all of those shadow-esque situations are related to traumas? Could it be just kind of personality disorders, perhaps that were hereditary? Or is it really all rooted in some sort of trauma?
Well, it's both. I mean, some of them have actually come in from past lives. I mean, if you can think
Wow.
about that, you have fears that don't make any sense to you, why you would have a fear of that. And that's why past life regression and therapy is so important as well. But some of it's past lives, some of it's from childhood. And yes, obviously there are percentages with, mental um, avenues or disorders or whatever you want to call that. But for the most part, it's from past lives and our childhood and what society has taught us, even teachers and people that we've been around.
But then strangely, like you talk about in your book, we all chose this. And we just talked about that with the soul blueprint. We all chose every aspect of it because we are learning from it. The learning process, the information, something about our soul's path is gaining from this specific life in that way.
Yes, absolutely. When I tell my clients that they chose their parents, sometimes they just say there's no way it didn't happen.
it's yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, but really it's hard because when you suffer, it's like, why did I choose suffering is really what the root of that is, right? Like, why did I choose suffering? Well, what sense is that? Who would choose suffering? That's what a terrible choice, right? But really you have to get to that other place, the 5D perspective, the shamanic perspective, the God's eye view, and look at it and say, no, was your choice because you needed to learn that because 3 lifetimes ago, something else happened, and now you need to learn this. And integrating 5D, moving into 5D is going to help us understand that all of these realities, the Akashic records, reincarnation, the soul's journey, all of that is going to move into mainstream consciousness.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so, I was going to say I'm ready, but it's here because, in my reality, that is the lens that I choose to view that from.
Right. We are already there. That's the thing. We're tuning in because time is
Yeah.
an illusion, right? That's, again, the quantum experience. We're outside of time. So outside of time, we're already there. We just have to get to that point. So we talked about the shadow work, but I just want to give people some ideas of how they can personally tune into 5D. Like, how can they identify it? What choices can they make to resonate with it more? Things like that.
So let me just, I'll give you a few examples, but the workbook that I wrote along with the book, Jake, actually is a step-by-step process too. And I love it because,
Wow.
you've got the chapter in the book and then you've got the chapter in the workbook and it has questions to answer at the end of it, and journal lines to write in the workbook because it just helps us with a foundation and take step by step. But just a few things to talk about today are, again, we talked about earlier, reminding ourselves to stay in joy, reminding ourselves to stay in gratitude. There's different levels of emotion and energy. And when we find ourselves, exhibiting behaviors of anger, fear, separation, division, those types of energies, to remind ourselves about the unity consciousness. And then also connecting with nature. The breath is super, super important. That's another one that seems so easy. But again, most of us are not breathing properly. We're not breathing from the diaphragm. So breath work is important. Mindfulness is important. Hertz music. I know for myself, I try to spend a few minutes each day with headphones listening to different Hertz frequencies. And like the 963 Hertz is the frequency of creator, and that's a beautiful one to shift our energy.
Wow, yes, I've been noticing those on YouTube a lot of different frequency videos. I personally like 777. That one seems to really calm me. I feel very calm. There's so many great ones. Do you recommend any others?
I'll have to try the 777. I haven't tried that one. I love 741, and 852 is another good one as well.
Wow, okay, that's something for people to explore. So, wow, what an incredible conversation we're having. I just want to ask you a few more things before we go. We've talked about so much, but we have a soul blueprint, but we're also a part of soul groups. Can we talk about soul groups a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. And I want to kind of talk about the difference between soul tribes and soul groups.
Okay.
So we incarnate in soul groups, and what Spirit has shown me is in a particular soul group, there may be 10 to 15 people in that group that kind of incarnate over and over and over. But then there's neighboring soul groups that may choose to incarnate to play certain roles in someone's life as well. So just because someone is in your blood family doesn't necessarily mean that they are in your main soul group. They may be in a neighboring soul group. And then the soul tribe is just like-minded people, like you said, who are vibrating at the same frequency, who have the same interest, who join together for a common cause.
Wow. So the soul tribe, it's like the light workers. There's so many people out there that are identifying that way. The people that are just doing the love work, trying to help us all get to new earth. Like whoever those people are, they're all part of our soul tribe. But then the soul group is very specific. It seems like the soul group is engineered for each individual soul's growth. Like they're all kind of playing into each other's roles to kind of help elevate each other collectively and individually.
Yes, and it's agreed upon before incarnating. But one thing that I realized, Jake, over the years and doing so many readings is that sometimes due to free will, one of the people that had agreed to play a certain role had gone off script. And what do I mean by that? Let's say they had agreed to be the antagonist per se in someone's life to help them learn different things, but they took it to a multiple degree, much further than had been agreed upon. And so I've developed something where I'm able to help people rewrite those soul contracts. And even if the other person is in spirit, we're able to do that. And it's so beautiful. It's a lot more complicated than what I'm talking about right here. But yes, we all agree to help each other along the way. And then the beautiful thing about the soul tribes is we can be in a soul tribe with somebody in a different country based on the internet, which is beautiful.
Yes, my God, goddess, creator, source, all of those beautiful things. That's the good of the internet. Just like you said, there's a shadow side, but the good side, I mean, it's allowing us to communicate instantaneously across a continent and have this very high frequency conversation. It allows people to conduct seminars with thousands of people in a remote location in Iceland or something, It's beautiful. There's so much good that came out of that, and it's helping us all connect. I remember when I first saw a Facebook group called the Galactic Council of Lightworkers, I was like, what? There's other people like me? And then there's, 500,000 around the world, and you're just like, wait, all you have had similar experiences, epiphanies, downloads, and you came to these understandings, and yet we're all having these same understandings. Whoa, right? That's so huge. It's a beautiful, powerful indicator, again, of our ascension and the fact that we are moving into this beautiful new earth.
Yes, and when like minds join together like that, the ripple of energy is so much more profound than it is when one individual. I mean, it's so beautiful, like you said. And then when you can meet, even through the internet, of all these people that have had this similar experiences than us, it helps to shift that vibration because we feel joyful, we feel understood, right? We
Yes.
feel like we're part of a group. We don't feel so alone in our own journey.
It's fortifying. It's affirming, it's an affirmation, and it's fortifying. Because when you have these powerful experiences and you're raising your vibration, you're around a handful of people that are just not there. Maybe they'll be there eventually, but they're just not there. It can be troubling or just kind of like frustrating for those people that are experiencing expansive growth. But then now we have this beautiful resource so people can connect and say, yes, we are there to support you. And yes, we are supporting each other. And yes, we are moving into that new earth. It's such a great thing.
It's a beautiful thing, Jake. And, one other thing, I just want to thank you for the work you're doing too, because, again, we get mixed up in life, and we sometimes get on that hamster wheel and forget some of these concepts that we've talked about. But when people can continually tune into shows like yours and hear you talk about all of these things and listen to the different guests, it really helps as a reminder for each one of us. And I think that that's beautiful.
Yes, I do as well. And I think your book is beautiful, actually. And I really want to tell people where to find it. Amazon, anywhere where you can get books, Manifesting Your Magic in the 5D, Going Beyond the Laws of Attraction. And like Jill said, there's a workbook that goes along with that. So get the workbook as well. You get the book, you get the workbook, and then you're going through the process. It's almost like a pocket seminar. You just have it right there. And she does conduct events. She has some events coming up in July. If you live in the New York area, go check those out. And if you're feeling her directly, you love her energy like I do, JillMJackson.com is her website. So you can connect with her and find out all of those things. And she does readings, right? Personal readings. So you can literally connect with her directly there and get a reading. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend the book. There's so much good in it. It helps people, again, understand these things. Understand the laws that are there to support us. The laws that have been hidden perhaps by mystery schools or these other kind of religious persecuting teachings. But now we have the laws, they're out there and they're in this book. So get that. And Jill, before we go, what an incredible conversation, right? This has been incredible.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to leave our audience with? So we've talked about so many good things, but is there anything else?
Just in closing, remember our divinity and remember our sovereignty, and play. I mean, so many of the loved ones on the other side tell us to remember how we used to play as children, and that helps raise our vibration as well.
Yes. Remember that openness when the only thing that mattered was being with your family and your friends and that love. You were disconnected from scarcity, from those different situations you experienced it as a child, and you just were there. I mean, even Jesus, Yeshua talks about that. All the great spiritual teachers talk about that. And that's an incredible message that you have left us with. I super appreciate it.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, it's been a great episode. And please hold through the outro music. We're going to talk more, but everyone else, go to the website, JillMJackson.com, get the book, and we will see you next week. Midnight on Earth.